On the phone, I get to talk to someone who not only is an attorney like me, he went on to bigger and better things. He's now a justice on the Minnesota Supreme Court. He also played in the played at Notre Dame and in the NFL. Pro Football Hall of Famer Alan Page. How you doing, Mr. Page? Justice Page, sorry.
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I'm so used to calling people by their last name, I forgot I have to call you Justice.
Well, that'll work.
Sounds good.
Wait a second. He can't send out any arrest warrants across state lines, can he? I think David, you're okay.
I wouldn't worry about the arrest warrants.
I read somewhere that, I know you're from Canton, I read that you actually worked on the construction of the Pro Football Hall of Fame when you were in high school.
Yeah, once or twice. I was working for a construction company that was doing some work there. I mean, it wasn't anything major. I probably swept a few floors, a few slabs of concrete.
So your initials aren't in cement someplace there in Canton?
No, by the time I got close to him, the cement was well set.
How did you end up in Notre Dame?
At the time, I had a choice of a number of schools, and that just seemed to be the one that provided the greatest opportunity beyond the football field.
Was it an easy transition going from Canton to South Bend?
Well, it was a transition for, it's a transition for any young person leaving home for the first time and off to a place where you really don't know anybody. But I managed to make that transition, and in retrospect, I think it was a very good decision.
What was Eric Parsegan like?
Great coach, very driven, very determined, very much focused on doing those things and putting in place those things which would allow a team to be successful.
During your time at Notre Dame, did you say to yourself, okay, I'm going to be a pro football player when I get out of here, or what were your goals?
That was not something that I was particularly focused on. I was basically trying to get through school. I had hopes one day of becoming a lawyer, but I hadn't really thought about professional football.
When you played in the national championship game, what was that like?
Well, you have to understand my approach to the game, whether it was a national championship game or just another game. They were all pretty much the same. The goal was to go out and perform as well as you could and hopefully come away successfully.
Now, the 1966 season is extremely memorable for the 10-10 tie with Michigan State.
Mm-hmm.
After the game was over, what were you feeling like?
I was tired, beat up. Just, worn out. I mean, it was a tough, hard-fought game. And it was a feeling of exhaustion, but more or less glad that it was over.
Did you guys think to yourselves, you know what, this might have hurt our chances to win a championship, us not playing for the win?
Quite frankly, I don't think that crossed my mind. You go out and you play and you do the best you can, and you do all those things. You hope you do all those things to give you the best chance to win. And the fact is that day we didn't win. As it turns out, we didn't lose either.
Now, I'm old enough to remember that game, and there was a pretty substantial build-up. What was the week preceding that game like inside the Notre Dame football team?
Well, there was a lot of tension, a lot of pressure, but as I say, from my perspective, I approached it as just another game. While there was a lot of attention, both local and national, the fact is that if you're going to be good at what you do, if you're going to be successful, you have to approach, at least for me, I had to approach each game as though it was the important one, and it couldn't possibly be any more important than the situation you were in the week before going into the one the week earlier. I mean, that's the important one then. The week we played Michigan State, that was the important one, and to me it was no more important than whoever we had played the week before.
If there was a trial...
Because you can't do anything about the past ones, and you can't do anything about the next ones, but you can do something about the one that's in front of you. And so that was always the critical game for me.
If there was a trial, it would have been a hung jury. You would have got at least a new trial.
Well, as it turns out, football games aren't trials. We had another game to play, and so we didn't get a chance to spend a lot of time focused on that one, no more than normal, and then preparing for the next one, which also wasn't anticipated to be any cakewalk.
When you got drafted by the Vikings, were you excited, or did you basically want to get on with your life and go into law?
No, I was excited about the opportunity to play professional football. It was a chance to do something that continue doing something that I enjoyed, and being paid for it.
Now, 1967 NFL draft was the first combined draft with the AFL and NFL, and 4 of the 8 first picks were from Michigan State. There was a Notre Dame. Paul Seiler picked at number 12. You got picked at number 15. Did you think you should have gone higher, lower, or did it not matter?
To the extent that I was thinking about playing football, I was happy to be drafted, and it didn't much matter in what place.
What was the transition like to playing professional football?
It was, learning new people, learning a different game a bit, and in my case, learning a new position. I was a defensive end at Notre Dame, and got to Minnesota, and they had Jim Marshall and Carl Eller at the defensive ends. And quite frankly, both of them were exceptional. It wasn't likely that I was going to be as good as either one of them were, and so somebody saw something in me that had them switch me to defensive tackle, and once I started down that road, it all came pretty naturally.
Now, your first season with the Vikings was also the first season of Bud Grant, who had coached in Canada, but now was in the NFL. What was he like?
Stoic, as he is, has been projected to be, but also very focused on creating a team atmosphere that allowed the players to minimize the mistakes and increase your chances of success.
When you were named the MVP of the league, what was that like?
It was pretty exciting, and it's not something that happens to anyone every day, and certainly not something that I had anticipated or would have ever thought would have happened. So I was pretty pleased.
And then later in your career, you had a defensive line coach named Buddy Ryan.
Right.
What was he like then?
Buddy was always very feisty, a great coach, understood the game, both offensively and defensively, and again, one of those people that put you in the position to allow you to be successful. I loved working with Buddy.
Did you have a favorite coach when you were in the NFL?
If I had to say there was a favorite, it was probably Buddy Ryan.
What made Buddy your favorite compared to the other coaches?
He was a coach who had high expectations, and as long as you fulfilled them, didn't spend a lot of time wasting time and energy on things that weren't particularly relevant to getting the job done.
Now, you were part of the great defensive line that was known as the Purple People Eaters. Did you like that label? Did you like being lumped together with one group, I guess?
Well, clearly we were a group, and clearly we had a lot of fun playing together and working together. And as you know, as names go, you don't have much control over it, and so that's what we got named. But I loved being a part of the group. I mean, it was a group of great, not only great football players, but talented football players, but a group of good people.
You must have had a lot of talent on those teams to make 4 Super Bowls there.
Well, you could say that. I mean, we were very fortunate, but also we were very talented.
How hard was that going to those 4 Super Bowls, not coming away with a win?
Well, you know, I said earlier that for me it was about the game that's in front of you, and you go out and you try to win them, and you do everything you can, and whether it's a Super Bowl or a game like the '66 game against Michigan State, or quite frankly a preseason game, the object is to go out and play well and do the best that you can. And for me, did I like winning? I mean, losing those games? No, but I didn't like losing any game. And so, while it was hard, it wasn't particularly that much harder than losing any of the other games that I played in that we lost. And over the years, while the teams that I was on fared better than they statistically should have, the ones we did lose, I wasn't particularly amused.
Willie Lanier, I think, said it best to us. He said, you know what? You play your hardest, but it's just a game, and too many people forget that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, the fact is that nobody wins all the time. Some people never seem to be able to be successful. And for me, it was always, I guess, one way to describe it is, for me, the journey was more important than the destination. And certainly, how you did what you did along the way was what was important in terms of the playing, and in terms of the rest of it, you're right. I mean, it is just a game. It was just a game.
As much as it is just a game, it's also a business. And you became an NFL player rep fairly early in your career. How did that come about?
Well, you know, the football back in the 1960s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, and even before that, players didn't have many rights in terms of where they played, the other terms and conditions of their employment. And I got involved in the Players Association early on to try to improve those terms and conditions. And while our success was modest while I was playing, I think it did pave the way for the working relationship that, when I think a very good working relationship that players and owners have today.
I think your greatest achievement was what you told me, and you're the first person out of all the players I've interviewed to tell this to me, was not anything on the field, but it was marrying your wife. That was your greatest tackle, you said.
Well, I've been married to my wife Diane now for it'll be 40 years in about a month. And in terms of what's important, that's the best thing that's happened to me. It's the most important thing that's happened to me, and it's led to children, grandchildren, and just a life that one couldn't hope for more.
Is that what led to the children's book, Alan and His Perfectly Pointy and Possibly Perpendicular Pinky?
Well, that was certainly a part of it. About 25 years ago, Diane and I started an education foundation. And because this is our 25th year, we wanted to do something to celebrate. And so it was suggested that a children's book, given the emphasis that I've placed over the years on educating young children and teaching children how to read and the importance of reading, that a children's book might be something that would be perfect for that 25th year celebration. And so my youngest daughter and I sat down and thought of what we might put into a children's book. My daughter Cammie, she's a second grade teacher. And so with her sense of what that age group, what would be appropriate and fitting for that age group, we sat down and talked about it, and eventually came up with the idea of a book about my pinky, if you will. And while it's a book about my pinky, it's really a book about curiosity, the importance of listening to children, the excitement and fun that children can have, and the child that lives in all of us.
How did you end up getting the perpendicular pinky?
Multiple dislocations that ended up with the ligaments on the inside of the finger being destroyed, and the ligaments on the outside of the finger pulling the finger out. And so it's been this way for quite a few years. The first time I injured it, it was in the middle of the game. I don't even remember what game. It was early on in my career with the Vikings. And Jim Marshall, who played next to me, saw me holding my finger as the other team was coming up to run the next play, and he grabbed it, pulled it back into place, and away we went.
No one could say that no one can say that Notre Dame players aren't smarter than USC players, because Ronnie Lott would have cut the finger off.
Well, if I had been a little bit smarter and started taping it to the finger next to it, it might still have some of those ligaments on the inside functional today. But I was a little bit of a slow learner, so I dislocated a number of times before I figured that out.
Well, I don't think you're much of a slow learner. You did go to law school while you were playing. How difficult was that?
Oh, it was challenging, but it provided me the opportunity after 9 years of professional football, provided me the opportunity to do something with my head besides use it as a place to store my helmet. And so I found law school fascinating and challenging. I look back on those days and think that it was a very good, positive, important part of my life, because it really did allow me or force me to extend and expand my thinking, my view of the world, and I couldn't have asked for more.
You have to retire from the Minnesota Supreme Court when you're 70. They have that retirement age. Any hope
We
of
have a
mandatory?
We have a mandatory retirement age, yes.
Any chance of seeing you possibly on the U.S. Supreme Court? Because we haven't had a football player since Whizzer White.
I think I'm a little past my sell-by date for that.
Well, those guys last pretty long,
They do, but they start out a little younger than I am.
Going from the Vikings to the Chicago Bears, an easy transition, a sort of a surreal transition, or what was it exactly?
Well, it came at a point in my career where I had probably been in Minnesota playing too long. It reunited me with Jim Finks and Neil Armstrong and Buddy Ryan. The people of Chicago welcomed me, welcomed my family, and so it turned out to be a really positive experience. I personally and my wife and my children, we had a great time. We had a great time in Chicago. Those were good days.
What is it with Canton? Such a small town. You've got more guys in the Hall of Fame, I think, than any other small town. It's you, Dan Dierdorf, Marion Motley.
Marion Motley. Well, the fact is that northeastern Ohio, particularly Canton, Massillon, Alliance, Warren, football is very, very important there. And it's something that is a part of those communities in ways that you don't find in many places. And there's a little of that same thing in northwestern Pennsylvania. That football is just very important, and that draws out the best of the talent in those communities, and there have been a lot of good talent.
What was your induction weekend like? It was more than just going home for a couple of days, I will assume.
Yeah, it was much more than that. It was, first of all, it was hot. It's always hot in Canton in August, hot and humid. But it was kind of neat to be recognized and appreciated by the people in your hometown, people that knew you when. And so that was kind of nice. It was obviously exciting and fun to be recognized for my football, and it gave me the opportunity to talk a larger platform to talk about some of the things that I think are important, particularly the importance of education.
You've achieved a lot in your life. Is there something that you still want to achieve?
Well, I like to think that the important achievements are on the horizon out there somewhere, and I'm trying to think through how I might have some impact, some greater impact, in inspiring and motivating and assisting children engage in learning. I haven't quite figured out how to do that yet, but that's what I'm looking forward to doing once my days on the court are over.
Now, I see that you have an extensive collection of Jim Crow era memorabilia.
We do, yes.
What prompted that?
Well, for me, growing up in the 1950s, an African American child in the days when Jim Crow was everywhere, the days when we lived in a state-sponsored, racially divided society, it's important that those days not be forgotten, that we recognize that everyone, no matter who they are, no matter where they come from, no matter the color of their skin, no matter what their religion, their ability or disability or gender or what have you, that everybody is entitled to fair treatment. In terms of the law, everybody is entitled to equal justice. And those pieces of memorabilia are a clear reminder that that hasn't always been the case in this country. And I think we forget at our peril.
What is your most valuable or most expensive piece of memorabilia?
You know, I don't collect it because it's expensive or not expensive. That's not something that interests me. What interests me is the history, the reminders, and the fact that we cannot lose sight of where we've been. So I don't spend a lot of time, and really the question is, what are the important pieces?
Right. What's the most important piece to you?
We have a number of signs, one of which was from a Greyhound bus depot in somewhere in Alabama, that it's a sign that lights up that says colored. That one's important. We have the Jim Crow era memorabilia. We also have some wonderful pieces of art, of African American art, and also probably the most important thing we have is as I say, one of them is another reminder of the Jim Crow era. We have a Ku Klux Klan robe, which is a striking reminder. And at the same time, we have a funeral banner from Abraham Lincoln's one of the funeral processions that when they took his body by train from Washington, D.C. back to Illinois. we have a funeral banner from that time. On one side it says, Uncle Abe, we shall not forget you. And on the other side it says, our country shall be one country.
Now, we have an African-American president. Do you say to yourself, gee, we've come a long way, or do you say to yourself, gee, there's still a long way to go? Because I can remember the 1950s and what the world was like.
Clearly we've come a long way, but we do still have a long way to go. It's a combination of both. I'm excited about the distance we've come, but there's still a long, long way to go.
Thank you so much for your time, and good luck with the book. I have 3 kids, 9, 8, and 7, in Catholic schools, and they enjoy reading.
Well, you know, one of the things that reading will do for you, it'll allow you to do that. It puts you in control of your own future.
Okay. And if people want to check out the Page Education Foundation, where should they go?
The site for the foundation